This is the Long Haul Pedalcast with John McGavick and Steve Schools. Incredible stories of endurance coming from the prairies. Be inspired to create your own long haul journey.
All right, Steve, episode 2. I am very excited. About 10 years ago, I was walking into my office and I saw a guy on a bike with a pierogi jersey. And I said to him, how many kilometers do you think you ride in a day going back and forth delivering the mail? And he said, somewhere between 100 and 150. And then he said, and I've been to the Olympics. And I said, who is this guy? And what is his story?
Yeah, so that's Lindsay Gauld. And like 100 to 150K a day. That, like, he's been doing that for like 60 years.
In January.
Yeah, all year round. And his story is a story of determination. What we've got here today is Lindsay Gauld talking about him going to the Olympics in 1972, but all the years before leading up to that, and just the difficulty and the determination that he needed to get to that level, and he did. He made the 1972 Olympic teams, but there's just so many little stories that he has, and I feel like I've heard little bits over the years, but this is like the full Olympics dream story. How did he make that happen coming from the prairies?
And the second part of that story that fascinated me as someone who loves cycling and loves Winnipeg is that the history of this starting in the 1960s with a handful of guys who dedicate themselves to this sport and say, we're going to the top.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear this interview.
Yeah, so great interview with Lindsay Gauld. So listen in, you're going to love this story. Okay, so on the Long Haul Pedalcast today, we have an extremely special guest, Lindsay Gauld, 1972 Olympian, bike shop owner, courier. He's ridden more than 1 million kilometers, trail builder, on and on and on. So great to have Lindsay Gauld. Welcome to the Pedalcast, Lindsay.
Thanks, Steve. It's fun to be here with you, and the thing I enjoy is that I'm not in a race where you're announcing and abusing me.
Right. Yeah, I have.
One of the, I could always count on him giving me a hassle.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we like to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I won't be hassling you too much today. Also on the Pedalcast, of course, we've got our co-host John McGavick. So welcome, John.
Thank you. Lindsay, Steve was abusing me last year in St. Malo while I was getting passed by a 12-year-old.
And that was announcing, yeah.
Yeah, and Steve was announcing, so
yeah.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a history with some of my comments. But, okay, let's turn our attention to Lindsay and your stories. Like, there's so much we could talk about. You know, like also, like Iditabike and all the things that you've done. But let's talk about your Olympic story, 1972, but also going just a little ways back from that, how you even got into the sport of cycling, and then how that kind of eventually, went towards a dream of trying to make the Olympics and go to Olympics. But just how did you get into the sport of cycling?
I think I could put it down to a couple things, but one, I started out as a kid as a hockey player. Realized I was going to be too small to carry on playing hockey. I took up speed skating, and then a friend of mine, Pete Williamson, came along from California, and I was the local hotshot, and he started to beat me, and he got me into cycling. He was a dual citizen, and his brother was a dual citizen and joined the U.S. Army. Pete waved goodbye to Eric at the airport and sold me all his cycling stuff.
Wow. I
bought a Schwinn Paramount, a tracksuit, 2 jerseys. He even offered me his shorts, but I had the good sense not to take them for $100. Oh, and cycling shoes too. We had the same size feet. So.
And did you have a bike before that?
No, I had an old CCM with double bars. Of my dad's. And I actually used to ride around on. No, not really, yeah.
So just like that, all of a sudden you just had a full bike racing setup.
Yeah. And Pete took me out for my first ride, and we went out to the White Horse, west of Headingley, and on the way back I had to get off and throw up.
Welcome to the sport of cycling.
I knew I'd found my sport.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. What year is that? Like
1966.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A year before.
Spring of 66.
Yeah, a year before the Pan Am Games came to Winnipeg.
No, I'm wrong. 1965.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So,
I had to think about that.
Lindsay, is it fair to say that's the best $100 you've ever spent in your entire life?
Oh, it was good. Yeah, it was pretty good bike. I mean, at that point, it was all steel components because there was no Campanolo. It wasn't even around. There was no cotter-less cranks. They were all cotter pin and but it was a pretty good bike. Yeah, I mean, it was as good as I could afford for sure.
So that's your first ride out to the White Horse, which is still there.
Yeah.
Now, what's your how did you then get into a race? Like, what's your first few races like?
My first race was at time, and we could hold races on places you simply couldn't now.
Yeah, right.
We had a time trial, a 10-mile time trial on the perimeter going south from just south of Roblin Boulevard to someplace down there, turned around and back, and over the overpass there by the train tracks. I think it was already, or maybe it wasn't there. I mean, chances are it was a level crossing, but I remember we going forever, and I thought I must have missed the corner because I must have gone 5 miles by now.
Right. And you've only gone 2 or 3 miles.
Yeah, exactly. Finally, I could see somewhere up far in the distance there. I got to turn around, and I remember because I was a junior, it was restricted gears, so they just adjusted the screws onto your derailleur, so
you couldn't gear down to a bigger cog, or
about a
cog.
week later, I went in a road race, and it was on Henderson Highway, and we went out to whatever,
like Lockport or
and then back around and to Hodnot Road, and I pedaling like this, and I hadn't. Gordy Reed came along and said, "Put it in a bigger gear," and I said, "I can't," and so they hadn't readjusted my derailleur. I was stuck in those little gears.
For the road race, yeah.
So anyway, but there was all of about 7 of us on the starting line, and but it was. I liked it, and it was going okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how do you go from you're just doing some races.
Yeah.
You're liking it. You're liking riding the
Yeah.
bike. At what point, like that's 65, 66, at what point are you thinking, maybe not Olympics, but like, hey, I want to really train for this?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Like, at what point did you kind of say, hey, I really want to commit to this?
In 1966, there was a big junior race, a tour in Portneuf, Quebec, an area just west of Quebec City. And Manitoba, we had a team there. And actually, 60, it might have been, we went 2 years in a row. And the first year, we just got killed. I remember, and the next year, we went back and I was pretty competitive. I was on the podium about 3 or 4 times in 6 stages, and thinking, oh, okay, this is going pretty well. And then some point later in the year, we went to a race in Calgary, a stage race, and it went out to Banff, out the old coach road or whatever. And there were some really good racers in Alberta, and I'm doing okay, but just okay. But there was this time trial up Mount Norquay, and out of the blue, I got second in it. I mean, it was out of the blue to everybody, including me. But that's when I thought, hey, I could be good at this, you know.
And is that like really maybe a first real climbing race?
Well, sure, because where are you going to be at a climbing race here in Manitoba?
right, because you're here racing. Almost everything is flat, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, we call a hill, and it's just a 5-meter rise in the road.
Yeah.
And so that was the first time you were really in that moment where, like, that Mount Norquay, like, they still do time trials up. It's a tough, steady climb.
Yeah.
And it was just like a total surprise that you're like,
well,
hey.
I could tell I was doing okay because I caught my minute man pretty quickly and pulled away from him, but I didn't realize I was, second overall. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
so that's the moment where you're like, okay, hey, I could be pretty good at this.
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah.
getting that motivation now, like
Yeah,
of some good results.
Sure.
Okay, and roughly what time frame is that? Like, is that?
I think might be 67.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a couple years in, you're starting to see results
Yeah.
like that, and then you just like what's kind of the next stage? You go through that, and
Well,
then are you trying to?
Yes, John? I saw a hand up.
Yes. Well, so Winnipeg probably wasn't known for a big cycling hotbed back then,
No,
right? In
for
the
sure.
60s?
Yeah.
So, like, who built that system and what was it like for you to be in that Winnipeg-based system back in the 60s?
I would say that the driving forces were, we had fellow Eric Oland, who was pretty involved with developing
Yeah.
cycling around here. Gordy Reed, very much so, from Gord's Ski Center, and Jim Morrison, who was a Scotsman that came over here, and he was the organized one of the bunch, and they kind of were the people behind the sport, if you will. Actually, a guy named Ed Champagne, who went on to be the head of downhill skiing for Canada, and again, you need those people in the back helping,
Right.
organizing and helping, and then the riders just drive each other along. We have, I started riding, and Walter Joswiak was around, and he owned Life Sport here in Winnipeg for a long time. He was a really good rider, and tended to be faster than me for sprints. So I always was motivated. If I finish with him, he's likely going to beat me. So I tried to make sure that didn't happen. But there were other really good riders coming along too. Yeah. Well, Pete Williamson that sold me my first bike. So yeah.
That's pretty amazing because Soren Westlake just said the exact same thing 60 years later, right? Having your community, having your guys to train with.
Yeah.
So it's great to hear that some of those core elements are still here in Winnipeg.
Well,
today.
sure. I mean, it's hard to do it in a vacuum. In fact, it's interesting. We all got pretty good, and then this fellow moved over here from Britain named Chris Hooker, and he was a really outstanding track rider. He was kind of on par with Jocelyn Lovell, Canada-wise, but local road races, he was a big guy, but we didn't have really hilly road races, and we all were forced to get better if we want to compete with him, and you tend to need to be in a milieu where you're challenged like that to a degree, but yeah, you just keep striving for that next level.
Right, and that's important. Like you said, you can't do it in a vacuum. And people, we're talking about your story.
Yeah.
But a big part of that was just having that group that you could train with and push each other. And sometimes that's a bit of good luck, right? Like those people are around you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I kind of at that point, when I decided I could be pretty good at this, I remember in 1968 I got a job, applied for and got a job as a gatekeeper at West Hawk Lake. There used to be an entrance on Hunt, went out to the Trans-Canada Highway, and I arranged to work nights every day and had all day to train at West Hawk.
Right,
and,
with the hilly terrain and all that.
And that kind of I went to the Canadian Road Championships and got 9th, which is okay. I mean, it was pretty good actually, but I was pretty inexperienced still, and then I got asked to be on this team in the Tour de Nouvelle-France, and with a guy named Joe Jones, who was the Canadian champion, and Giuseppe Marinoni, who famous bike builder, but he was a really good rider when he was doped up. And I said, yeah, I'd love to do it, but can my friend Walter be on the team too? Because, and we were,
Wow.
and again, we were kind of the water carriers for the team.
Right.
But again, it gave me experience to sort of come up to another level. It was 12 days and it was 1,400 miles. It was a hard tour.
That's like a real stage race. Like,
Yeah.
And it was in Quebec?
Quebec, yeah.
And
it
big teams were there as well.
started in Montreal and ended up going up around Lac Saint Jean and back down near the border and ended up back near Montreal. Yeah.
So
it
that
was long.
that would have been like your first like major
Yeah.
race, major stage
Yeah,
race, big
yeah.
teams. Yeah. Working for like a real accomplished leader.
Yeah. Oh, and
Yeah.
it was tough. Yeah. It was long stages. I remember we raced from Chicoutimi to Quebec City, 136 miles, and we had a 20-mile criterium that night in Quebec.
Oh my goodness.
So,
And this isn't like, you're not like, hey, I've got my gels and I've got my electrolyte mix. Like you're just doing it on water and bananas? Is that?
it's sort of, yeah. Coke.
And Coke, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really all you had.
Yeah. And again, we were working for these guys, and but I got better, and that towards the end of August, myself and Walter went and did the Tour de Lac Saint Jean, and the whole Canadian Olympic team was there.
Because this is in like 1968, kind of, that Olympics.
1968,
Mexico City.
and I ended
Olympics.
up. There was 5 of them there, and I beat 3 of them at the end, and,
Wow.
got second in the time trial, and it was a hilly time trial. So I kind of I was heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and that's got to give you a lot of
Yeah,
motivation to
yeah,
say like
yeah.
you're there,
Yeah.
you can be there, and you're only like early 20s at that point, right?
Yeah, I was 20.
Yeah, you're 20.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and still making rookie mistakes, if you will, because
Yeah.
we just didn't get to race with that field all the time, you know.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's 1968.
yeah,
So you've just had like big, huge race. You've
Yeah.
had solid results. You can see how you compare
Yeah.
against some of the best in Canada.
Yeah.
And then like,
and then I went to university, and
Ah.
it kind of slowed things for a little bit. You know,
Okay.
I was, I trained, but I did okay. But I would say I didn't quite have the time to try to get up to another level at
Yeah.
that point, or maybe I wasn't organized enough. Then I solved it by finishing university, getting married, and convincing my wife I should do this and support me.
right. So you've got Lynn, your wife, to
Yeah.
support you as she's working as a teacher.
Well, I got out of university and supported her through her last year of university.
Oh, okay.
And then I managed to convince her she needed to support me for the next 50 years. And it's worked out quite well.
Yes, yeah. So like this is another like part of like the good luck of it, that you've got Lynn there who, believes in you and supports you, and you've got that, because that
Sure.
that
Yeah.
obviously like I think what you said is, you had these great results, but then you're going to university, you're not kind of jumping to a new level, you're kind of plateauing a bit.
Yeah, I still did. Did okay at national level events, but I didn't kind of jump up another level.
Right.
And then I think in 1971 I quit work to train. I was married, and I managed to convince Lynn that it was a good idea. Both of our parents didn't think so at all, but she did.
Okay.
And I kind of went.
You have a great line in the Winnipeg Free Press when they interviewed you about this. I don't know if you remember, but you say, there's no way that I would let all of the time that I've spent training go to waste because of financial problems. I'll borrow money or do whatever it takes to train. And I think that is such a great line, especially your age, right? You were 27 at the time.
Well, we didn't have any money, so yeah. Yeah, and there wasn't any funding. I mean, the funding was what Lynn earned, And actually, I think somehow or other, Manitoba Teacher Society, because they got wind of her supporting me, and they gave us a grant of, I mean, it was $1,000 or $1,500, which was
A lot of money.
a lot of money then. You know,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
but
That's great.
yeah,
and
some friend of hers kind of made that happen. You know, through teaching. Yeah,
okay.
but yeah,
And so you've decided, like, this is 1971.
yeah.
You've decided to take a year off because you want to make the Olympic team. Is that like?
Well,
is that in your?
I wanted to make the Pan Am team that year, and
okay.
you know,
Right.
I think I could tell this story now because the guy who was involved with it is dead, Walter.
Okay.
I wasn't really a track rider, but I trained on the track quite a bit.
Because we had a velodrome
to
in
try
Winnipeg.
to get, we had a good velodrome,
Yeah.
but to try to get faster, and we went out and did the Canadian Championships in Vancouver, and it was for the team team pursuit. It was a 16-lap track. I think 16 laps. Does that make no? That can't be right.
Yeah, 250-meter track, so
Yeah,
16
200
laps for 4,000 meters. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and actually, I'm wrong because it was 285 meters, which was
okay.
a common size.
Yes,
apparently.
that's right.
Yeah.
So it might be
Yeah.
like 14 laps
Yeah.
or something like that.
But
yeah.
we got second in the final, but I'm with Walter, Louis
Corbet.
and Jack McCullough, and we were a good team, but we're behind BC, and I pulled the last 3 laps to try to get us up there, and basically dropped the rest of the team.
Oh.
Just at the end, I was strong enough to do that, and the officials came over. People, great ride, you know, whatever, and then they put Walter on the team, not me, for the Cali Pan Am Games
In 1971.
Yeah, so I was a little frustrated about that, and I went to the Canadian Road Championships in Gatineau Park and got 5th, and I got dropped by Max Grayson. This I told Stephen a story of I've reconnected with this guy. He was a New Zealander who
Raced a
won
lot in
3
Canada,
straight Canadian Road Championships, and the last climb I just didn't hang on, but I held the whole group off for the last 20 miles in to the finish by myself and got 5th. And I was close, but I hadn't concentrated strictly on road. And so the next year I said, enough of this track stuff, I'm going to train for road. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so that's a key moment because you're straddling a few different aspects, and then you're just like, I'm all in for road.
1971, I was training for track, but I did 22,000 miles of training. And the next year, I upped it for road, and I did 27,000 miles.
Okay, let's just pause there. 27,000 miles. So that's...
We got to do the math.
Yeah,
are you doing the math on that
right now? And that's like
42,000
42,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
And that's over 365 days. And that's more or less, most of that time is in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not spending 6 months in Arizona.
No.
So I'm just trying to look, like that's like basically every day, 7 days a week, 52
I might
weeks.
have taken a day off once.
Right. But that's just averaging like, 115, 120K every single day, 7 days a week, if you rode 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So that's the year leading up to leading up to the Olympics. But even the previous year, you had 22,000.
Yeah.
So you did, in the 2 years leading up to the Olympics in 72, you did almost 50,000 miles of training, which is almost 80,000 kilometers in those 2 years.
Yeah, I remember trying to figure out. I think I put it down to about 1,600 or 1,700 hours.
A year.
So yeah.
Yes,
so,
a year, which is actually more, I think, than you would find for an average World Tour pro right now. Like that's,
Yeah,
I mean,
they train smarter. They don't train more. Yeah.
right. But it's, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
like my brain is trying to wrap around those
Yeah.
numbers. But also I think the other dimension of this again is you're living in Winnipeg, and it's not like you have indoor Zwift, right? Like
Yeah.
would you say most or all of that training is outdoors?
I don't ride rollers.
Right, exactly. Like you would, like back then.
There was only rollers then.
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
And
So okay, let's say we're January. It's minus 20 out for a week or two.
Yeah.
What is your training like on a January day in Winnipeg
Well,
in 71, 72?
Just all day riding, basically.
Right.
I trained with Louis Courbet.
Yes, right.
And he was on the training for track, and I was training for road. And we were a good combination. I made him go further than he wanted, and he made me go faster than I wanted. You know,
Okay.
but we pushed each other big time. And we would go. We'd head out, and we'd ride out Dugauld Road
Yeah.
to Enola, and then up to Beausejour, and we would do bit and bit the whole way, just switching. And I kept thinking, I hope he wants to stop. I hope he wants to stop. And he's thinking the same thing. Eh?
But you don't want to
Because
say
we
it
talked
to each
about
other.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just push each other, and even I think surely we'll take a break at Enola. But no, just full speed around the corner and just keep going. You know, and yeah.
So that
Oh
would
my
be
God.
that would be like maybe a 90-mile ride. You guys. Would
Yeah,
do like
and
that.
then he'd get home, and I'd turn around and ride up to Selker or whatever. Yeah, and I would just put in. I would just put in time then. You know,
Yeah, it
like
was
I'd
more
done
just
my hard work. I just
Right.
yeah,
So you might put in another 20 miles
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
And just to say, it's November 5th today. There's no snow on the ground, and I already see on Strava a few people are already on Zwift, right? Like you were doing 90-mile rides to Beausejour in January.
Well, you know what? We probably did less in January than we did in May for
Right.
sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But you're
But we did lots. Yeah.
Yeah, you're riding basically
And I
almost every
remember
day.
at that time, one of the sort of ideas where you start in a 67-inch gear, which is, and you do that for 1,000 miles. And then you put a 70-inch gear and then gradually sneak it up until
So you start at a higher cadence.
and make
faster
yourself
cadence.
just pedal fast.
Yeah.
And just get your cadence up. And so we were riding little gears and just spinning, if you will, and just try to learn to pedal, get fluid. And I mean, a lot of things. I mean, basically, I was my own coach because there weren't any. I mean, Gordy Reed was a big help to me, but he wasn't a coach. I mean, or Peter Zabricki was a big help to me, but he was my guru, not my coach.
Yeah.
He was the owner of Cycle Center Sportif, and actually that's where I bought my bike that I rode in Munich.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So just finishing off on the training, like, yeah. So you're your own coach.
Yeah.
And like back then, it was like Fausto Coppi saying, "Well, how do I get better?" And he just ride a bike, ride a bike, ride a bike.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was just that was the idea: is ride as much as you
Well,
could.
and I tried to make sure I injected enough speed work in there.
Yeah,
And
okay.
if I was riding, I'd ride out to Steinbach and then go straight north to Beausejour and around. So that was like 130 miles.
That's right.
Yeah. But I'd do at least one interval session and maybe a sort of a short time trial in there somewhere.
Okay. On just every training ride, or just like once a week, or
Well, I was doing that kind of mileage every day, just about whether it was smart or not.
Right.
It worked for me. That was probably, if I had something, if I had if I would say my talent was, I seemed to be able to handle heavy workloads
Right.
and not break down.
right.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Whether-
important. Like you found something that worked for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It may not like the listeners of this podcast,
yeah.
Pedalcast may not want to do
And-
1,800
Right.
hours a year.
And Lynn would tell you I was obsessive about my weight too, because I knew what I did best was climb.
Yeah,
And-
at that point
and-
you knew that.
Yeah. And so I tried to stay down around 122, 123 pounds. At one point in 72, I got down to 118, and I was too weak.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I was.
so you knew that kind
They
of
were
optimal
eyeing
weight.
me at Assiniboia Downs when I rode by.
right, right.
But anyway, yeah, I found that I just had no reserves then.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I just really watched what I ate. I mean, nowadays cyclists are very obsessive about weight, and I was at that point just because it just seemed to make sense. And whether it wasn't a coach telling me to do that, it was me
Just
telling
reasoning it
me.
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
So
oh, go ahead.
if I were to ask just one question, like right now we're thinking about lactate threshold, lactate curves, FTP power. What were you measuring? The wind on your face, your heart rate, like
You know,
how
you're
much
absolutely
pain
right.
you were enduring?
There was nothing really. I was monitoring my effort, but I didn't know heart rates or anything like that. It was just simply push harder, go faster. You know.
Go
I mean, I oversimplifying it, and I tried to ride hills when I could get to them. But I mean, even just to drive out somewhere to train at La Riviere or wherever. Well, I didn't have the money to pay to drive out there very often. A couple of us would join up together to go and do that once in a while. I did a lot of, I'd overgear into the wind, things like that for hill training. I mean, but that for whatever reason came naturally to me. That was what I was good at, is climbing hills.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's your kind of synopsis of that training that year, those 2 years leading up to Olympics. But now you're getting like you've got to try and make the Olympic team.
Yeah.
And so what is how does that look? How does that develop over that time period?
Well, in 72, there was a big stage race called, I think it was the Tour de l'Estrie, and a bunch of American teams were there in the,
And this
might
is
have been June or probably about June.
of 72.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is in Quebec?
It wasn't going to conflict with the Olympics. So,
Okay.
and I went to it and did pretty well. I had one stage where I lost time from a puncture or a mechanical and a slow change and didn't make it back.
Okay.
But I kind of had some really strong stages and thought, okay, I think I was fourth Canadian in spite of problems. But I didn't get invited to the Olympic trials for team time trial. And Jimmy Morrison was the district chairman for cycling, and he kind of went after them and got me there. And it went real well. I had good results, and in fact, I was on the Canadian team had to reach a certain standard to get into the Olympics, and they needed me to be on the team to do it. In fact, we rode 100K, and we had to do it under 209, 210, whatever, and we did it. And then the guy that had to sit on my wheel complained about it, and they.
Because you're a smaller guy.
I'm smaller, yeah. And basically, so I had peaked for that, and I thought, okay, and they didn't put me on the team. So I ended up 3 weeks later the Canadian Road Championship.
And just to pause on the team time trial. So for those that don't know, like team time trial doesn't happen that often. This is a team of 4 riders.
Yeah.
And you had to hit the qualifying time.
Yeah.
Which is 100K, like 209. You're basically, like, that's average speed, like 48K an hour, 4 guys
Yeah.
working together. There's no aero helmets. There's no aero bars.
No.
Maybe you have a skin suit, and not even a skin suit.
No.
No aero water bottles.
No.
Like no helmet that goes on for
No,
2 feet
no,
around
yeah.
over your
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
But you're able to hold that speed. You did that.
Yeah.
You accomplished the qualifying time
Yeah.
for a team to be sent to the Olympics,
Yeah.
and then subjectively they don't put you on the team, and you almost didn't even get to the trials to begin with,
Yeah, I
because Jim
know.
Morrison.
Yeah, that was the dilemma. Is a lot. The powers in cycling were Ontario, Quebec, and to a lesser degree BC and Alberta.
Right. Yeah.
And we were just Neverland. You know?
That's right. It was
Yeah.
easy to kind of
Yeah.
ignore
I mean,
Manitoba. Yeah.
We had some traction, if you will, on track. But,
Right, because you had a velodrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on road, it was
yeah,
Quebec and Ontario typically,
Yeah,
and very much
that's
Quebec.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So you've done all this, like that was your, you sensed that was your opportunity to make the Olympic team.
yeah.
You get this gut punch of not like going through all that, being at your peak, and not getting selected. And now it's, as you said, like 3 weeks to the road
Yeah.
race, your last chance.
And then the road race was in Vancouver, in Burnaby, and it was, fortunately for me, a very, very tough course because it was a really vicious hill. We had to go up it 19 laps, and times change. I remember, like nowadays, I went through a water bottle getting from my home to here. I'm kidding, by the way. But then I rode the 120-mile road race, 2 water bottles.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
So this is like a 4-hour plus road race.
well, yeah.
And 2 water bottles.
Yeah. Just
And it's in July. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to
Yeah.
get. It was hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Now-
now I would be cramped up before I got around the first corner. but
Can
again,
I just ask-
didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Can I just ask one question about that race that I read in the paper, that there was only one spot available for the team,
yeah, that's right.
right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the key element of this story, is that Cycling Canada said, okay, we're going to offer one spot.
Well,
And
it
what
really
was the
came down to
rationale there?
they'd already named the people for the team time trial team, and they named 5 of them. So
Oh, okay.
there was, at 2 of them were guys that were clearly not designed to go in a road race.
Oh.
So there was one spot. Yeah.
So
Wow.
So there's one spot. So like, just to set this up, you've gone through the team time trial. Again, a gut punch. You're not making the team that way. There's one spot
Yeah.
at the Canadian Championships and kind of pseudo Olympic trials. So that one spot,
Yeah.
it's all or nothing
Mm-hmm.
at that point.
Yeah.
And you've taken a whole year off or more than a year off
Yeah.
to focus to try and make this Olympic
Yeah.
team. So take us through that day. Like that, you've got that insane motivation, but it's all or nothing. Take us through that.
Well, I mean, I was highly motivated, but so were the other guys,
Yes.
I suppose. But I can't speak for them in a way. But it was, like I say, fortunately, it was a course that really suited me. And not everyone, like there are horses for courses, and this one was a good one for me. And the thing is, it was a really steep hill, and like then we rode 10 speeds. I mean, you had 2 chain rings and 5 cogs at the back. So it was really, and I had won a Zeus freewheel at one point, and this was a freewheel that was like today, you can put cogs on. Well, that was how that was. So I went out and got a whole bunch of cogs for the Zeus freewheel, and I could make up a specific setup for a given course. But even then, you're starting to work through, well, what do I need? What am I? And I'm talking it over with trying to figure out the gearing, and I had a whole bunch of chain rings too. And I thought, well, what do I need here for chain rings? And, you know, like, do I need a 42 or do I need a 44 or for the small one? And I remember thinking, well, I could put a larger cog at the back for a bailout gear. And I, at one point, said, well, if I need a bailout gear, I'm screwed anyway, you know.
Okay.
So I didn't do that, you know. I because you had to give up something with that.
Yeah, you only got 5 to pick
and
from.
so as it was, I needed gears to make it up that hill, and then it flattened out a little bit. So then you'd click up in one bigger gear, but then you had to roll across about 4.5 miles of flat, or relatively flat.
Yeah.
So you needed some gears on the flat.
And you might need a gear for the sprint.
Like nowadays, you know, you could do it all with your 12 cogs.
You can have everything. You don't even have to think about it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember how I had to flip it between the big and the small chain rings to make all that work. But it was, life was different then.
Yeah.
But so the race starts, and I had a bike problem, and I can't remember if it was broken spokes or something, but I had to get off of my bike for at least a lap. It might have been just a lap, but the brake went away and I'm on Gordy Reed's bike, and I used a 50 centimeter bike, and this was 54, so 1.5 inches too big, and the saddle was even not adjusted to my height. I mean, he wasn't a big, tall guy, but he was taller, and I just tried to go with them, and it just didn't work. I think it was the only option, and so they got my bike going. I got back on it, and I attacked at the bottom of this really steep hill, Royal Oak Hill, and this one guy from BC came with me, and we went and we got well clear of the group.
But you still have this breakaway well ahead.
They were a minute up.
A minute, yeah.
That's hard to make up, but I went and this fellow Roger Sumner, who was a really good climber from BC, I thought, oh, good, this will be good, and he decided that it wasn't going to work and dropped back.
Oh, so now it's just you by yourself.
You know, the thing that saved me was a guy from Alberta had gotten dropped from the break, and I caught up to him, and he rode with me for a while. And to be honest, he said, his name was Norman Lowe, and he said, I don't think I could do it, but I'm going to help you for a while.
Wow.
And he did.
Wow.
And we got to near the bottom of the hill, and there's a big gap. You're on the flat, but then they get going up the hill, and suddenly it looks like they're right there.
Yeah.
And I went for it, and I caught up just at the top of the climb.
Yeah, so you had to close that minute on that climb.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's kind of all or nothing.
It's all or nothing, because at some point that group of 5 of them up there are just going to overwhelm me.
Right.
I mean, they're switching off, and
and you've got that hill. You've got to basically take advantage of that right then and there.
For sure.
So
I got one other quick little story about Norman Lowe.
Yeah, go for it.
The next year, he's from Alberta, really good rider. He's in the break at the Canadian Championships in Burlington, Ontario. And I'm in the chase group and realized that he was on his own, and I wouldn't work. You know, I owed him.
You owed him, and you paid him back.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
that's
I
cool.
thought, if the group catches, that's one thing, but I'm not going to contribute to it, and he won.
Oh,
yeah.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I ask where Norman Lowe is these days, or do you ever stay connect with him?
He's still in Alberta.
Okay.
And I don't know. He married a girl from Winnipeg, actually.
Oh, okay.
That I knew.
Okay.
Just small world.
But we'll have to pass on this podcast to him.
Yeah.
Because that's a really good story. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hats off to Norman Lowe for helping Lindsay
Yeah.
get to the Olympics.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So you bridge across.
Yeah.
Right. And this, like, your motivation is like, this is your chance.
Yeah.
Right. So now, like.
So I get up
Yeah.
there, and there's 4 people there, and Max Grace is a New Zealander, John Gromack, and at that point, people that were living in Canada could race the Canadian Championships, but they wouldn't be eligible for the team. John Gromack is an American; he's not eligible, and Gilles Durand is a Quebecer who has already made the team time trial team. So, but there is one guy, Gino Catarin from Guelph, Ontario, and I'd raced against Gino, and he's a really good racer. He's trying to make the Canadian Olympic team.
Yeah.
And I sensed him suffering, and I attacked on the climb, I think maybe 2 laps later.
Okay.
And he was off, and I was the one, I just forced the pace because
At that point, you're the last guy left
I knew if I'm
in that breakaway that can make.
as long as I don't put myself in peril of getting dropped by it, I just got to make sure that break
Sticks together.
lasted.
Yeah.
And we just got far enough ahead that I could back off from that. But at first, that was my big mission: is make sure that break and pull harder, pull further, and
Right.
and
it works.
yeah, and it worked. Yeah, in fact, it was a 5.5 mile circuit, and there was only 9 finishers. We lapped everybody except 5 people. So everybody else dropped out.
Yeah.
Either dropped out or got lapped and got pulled out.
Right.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
the end, I think you finished second.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
how it worked? Max Grace finishes first, who's
Yeah,
a New Zealander.
yeah.
You finished second.
Yeah.
And how does that feel? Like, you crossed the finish line, and at that point, did you realize, like, I did it?
I thought this is going to get me on the Olympic team.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the highlight of the day was Gordy Reed coming over and kissing me.
That's awesome. Like, and for those that don't know Gord Reed, I mean, he was one of Manitoba's best cyclists in the 50s, along with Eric Olin, and like a living
and
legend.
He just kind of took care of his boys. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But and then they up on the podium they kind of announced the results, and this Mike Brecken, who was the manager of the Canadian Olympic team, came up and laid a little speech and said I was on the team.
Yeah, so at that point you knew it. You had done it.
Yeah.
And how did that feel? Like,
oh, exciting.
I mean, because you've put 2 years of your life
and
dedicated to that.
Exciting, but more just a relief.
Yeah, because every day, you've trained every day, day after day.
Yeah.
No, not working, just training.
Yeah.
And now you're on the Olympic team.
Yeah, it would have been tough to come home to not having made it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's that relief.
Yeah. I think I needed that pressure.
Yeah. Maybe just That's a good point. And actually, when we talked to Soren in our previous podcast, he's like, I need that pressure. Like, he had all these issues of a broken wheel and trying to get a spare wheel before the race, and he says that just gets him really revved up to leave it all out there.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now you've made the Olympic team. This is summer of 1972.
Yeah.
The Olympics are in early September of that year.
Yeah.
So take us through, like, I don't know if maybe there's something between that, like the Olympic trials and the Olympics.
Okay.
And then take us kind of through the Olympics.
Our road team, we went over to Brittany.
In France.
And stayed in a little town called Vannes and trained and raced there. And just local road and crit races. Actually, we did a team time trial, a 6-man team, because all of us were in it. We did there was a big criterium in a community called Quiberon, and it was Eddie Merckx was there, and it was
racing?
One of the post-tour criteria.
Ah, okay.
And
who at that point, Eddie Merckx is by far the greatest cyclist ever.
Yeah.
Like, truly, like, mythical figure in cycling.
And we ended up, our manager was a guy who was the guy that was taking care of us in France. Was interesting name, René de la Tour. I honestly, and he was a journalist, and I don't know whether that was his real name or he made it up.
Right. It sounds pretty
His
good.
nom de plume or whatever you
Right,
call it. Yeah.
right.
But in any case, we went and we met the GAN team after. They were that
Pro
was
team.
Poulador
Yep.
and Guimard and I mean.
Probably like the number
yeah.
2, number 3 team in the world.
Yeah. And
Wow.
had dinner with them. But we raced there. But we raced a bunch of races. And
Okay.
I was, didn't win anything. But then I was the kind of guy that if it came down to any kind of sprint, I wasn't likely not going to win
Right,
it. Yeah.
right.
I mean, it would be a pretty freaky thing if I did.
Yeah, these
So
weren't races that you were like disappointed that you weren't on the podium, like because they were flat or
you were using them
sprint-based.
for training.
Yeah.
And there was some. I remember being in a break in one of them with a guy named Marcel Duchemin who had won the milk race that year.
Oh wow,
for
yeah,
France.
which is the biggest race in
Was
Britain
the biggest
at that
amateur
point.
race at that time.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And,
So you're over in Europe, and I read in an article you told a reporter that Canadians had to be foxier than Europeans.
They're
That
what?
they race a lot more than us. That Canadians had to be foxier. So what does foxier mean? Is it like psychology, timing, just guts?
Funny things would happen in a race, and I experienced it in a couple of those races where if you get in a break with somebody, they don't know you, they don't want to work with you, they don't want to waste their energy. Like you're an unknown commodity to them, so they don't want to put it all out there.
They don't want to risk on something they don't know.
Yeah,
Like they don't know that rider, how they're going to ride, what they're
so
going to do.
again, you needed the best race I had in Europe was after we got over to Germany. We went to a race in Liechtenstein, and our team was there. And Liechtenstein is a tiny little country, and it's basically built on the side of a mountain. And the course was up, down, across, up, down, across. And I got 6th or 7th, I don't remember. And the rest of the Canadians were out the back door. And I didn't do anything other than just
Hang in there.
hang at the front,
Yeah.
and wait for people to get dropped, because I didn't know people particularly, but I knew, the front is the place to be on a climb.
Right.
Yeah, and so I knew I was in pretty good form, and then, yeah.
So that's that maybe month before the Olympics. In
Yeah,
Munich,
that was
Germany.
probably 2 weeks before the
Yeah.
Olympics.
Okay,
yeah,
so
about-
you're in good form going into the Olympics.
Yeah.
And at that point, the Olympics are amateur, right?
Right,
Like
yeah,
this is
yeah.
Eddie Merckx is not going to the Olympics, whereas
yeah.
now
Yeah.
Remco
Yeah,
Evenepoel
yeah.
can go to the Olympics.
Yeah,
kinda,
exactly.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So are you at any point thinking like, hey, maybe I could do really well at the Olympics? Like, is that, I don't know, part of your psychology, or were you just like, you just wanted to get to the Olympics and have as good a race as you could?
I think when we saw the course, I knew it really wasn't a particularly good course for me.
It wasn't super hilly.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, if I hadn't crashed and had issues, I was hoping to be in there and whatever, and it just came off the rails there. But it was kind of in around Munich. There's a river that I don't even know what river it is,
Okay.
but so the course was along a flat stretch or rolling stretch through a river valley with a decent climb out of it, but not severe.
Yeah.
And then along the other side of the river and through the same river valley again. And that was the extent of the course,
Yeah. Okay.
And it was a rollers type course,
Right.
and that wasn't really me. I mean, but it.
It's what it is. What it is. I mean, you're
Yeah,
still at
yeah,
the Olympics,
yeah,
and you never
yeah,
know.
Yeah.
So now let's and just to set the historical positioning of this race, looking up the dates, September 7th is the road race. Very early late in the night of the September 4th, early in the morning of the September 5th, there's the infamous hostage taking in the athlete village.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like you're in the athlete village at that point. Kind of
were-
take us through a couple
you know-
of days there. We don't want to get too far into it, but it is quite a historical moment. You're right there.
It was, extremely close to us. These were townhouses and rows of townhouses that later were sold off after the Olympics. They were built for that, but they came. Honestly, I'm a little mixed up about this. Whether
Yeah.
they cut through the fence or they went over the fence.
I understand they came over the fence. Yeah, they had seen a few other athletes go over the fence, sneaking in and out, and they went over the fence, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's right. Actually,
Okay.
I say that because I saw a movie.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was called, but it was a movie showing the Israelis going after the people the perpetrators
Yeah.
in later years, and they showed it one way. And at that point, I said, "No, that's not right. I think they did cut through the
Okay.
fence."
Okay.
But we were in a townhouse. The Koreans were in the next one, and the Israelis were the one right next to that. So
Like you're right
when
there.
we got up in the morning, we could see
Wow.
the German soldiers on the roof in their tracksuits, their Puma tracksuits with their machine guns, and we were told that now in certain terms we were not to be going out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're right there. Like this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
this
I
is
mean,
meters away. almost.
I've jokingly said, and it's true, but I'm sorry for what happened, for sure. But I'm glad they knew where they were going.
Yeah.
Because they walked literally right by our condo.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you just never know. You could have just
Yeah.
been,
Mistakenly.
mistaken, or
Yeah,
or you're
yeah.
just out.
Yeah.
Whatever. You wake up
Yeah.
and all of a sudden.
And then the townhouses are built on top of a two-layer parking garage underneath that stretched forever. And when we did get out, and we got out to go for, I almost want to say just a saunter around on our bikes because it was right before our race.
Yeah.
Down in the parkade was just lines of German army
Vehicles and people and
with full of troops, just
Yeah.
ready to do whatever.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
just didn't know what was going to
yeah,
happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
yeah. It was a scary time.
Yeah, and really, like when you look at it, like within like 24 hours, I mean, just
Yeah.
everything that could go wrong has almost gone wrong.
Yeah.
They're at the airport trying to whatever, and you had earlier said before we went on air that there was a Memorial Day, like,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of uncertainty, like
Yeah.
what's going
And
to
we didn't
happen.
we didn't go to it
Yeah,
because
it was the day before the
yeah,
race. Yeah.
yeah.
But you're not like
But
teams
yeah,
are uncertain.
but everything got put on hold. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I mean, I'm not sure whether they were trying to figure out what they were going to do or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah, like that's like that historical moment. You were right there, and it's before you've trained 2 years for this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
What's all this added uncertainty? But then now it's the day of the race. The race is going ahead.
I have one other quick
Yeah.
little story
Go for it.
about the athletes' village.
Yeah.
We got to wander, go and eat in the village, and there was a local guy, Bruce Purdy,
Yeah.
who's a famous shot putter,
Yeah.
whatever,
He's been involved in
from
Manitoba
Winnipeg.
track for a long
And,
time. Yeah.
and I knew Bruce, and we were in the athletes' village, and we went and had lunch together. And Bruce was eating quite a bit because he said, "I'm trying to keep my weight up to 360 pounds." And I'm eating a little because I was trying to keep my weight under 122.
Right. You're a third of his size.
I said, if you have a big lunch and I have a small one, you're going to weigh 3 times as much as me. So we laughed about that. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
an amazing Manitoba connection too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm hoping we can do some interviews. Bruce was an amazing coach, super nice guy, like just pillar of the track and field community.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's now kind of leading up to the race.
Yeah.
Day of the race. I mean, it's like I mean, a lot happened on that
Yeah.
day. So let's
Well-
go take us through that day.
Well, first of all, you're standing on the starting line, and we actually had a fairly good spot on the grid by countries, and they I don't know whether this is a UCI thing or whatever, but I'm supposed to be bilingual from Canada. All of the instructions are rattling off are in French. I'm nervous. I mean, everybody there's nervous. So I'm standing on the starting line in the middle of all these people, decide I need a pee. Well, I pee right there, you know. Well, the gun goes off then.
Because you don't know it's about to start.
That's right.
Oh, great.
So I thought, well, okay, I could sort of quickly tuck things away and piddle into my shorts, or I could finish, and I finished. So I lost a little bit of ground, but not a whole lot, but it may be. Anyway, we start, and there's 179 people, I think it was. Too many, anyway.
Yeah, a really big field, and it's all amateurs.
And so we're riding, it started on the flat on one side of the river, and we're going, and suddenly there's a big crash up ahead, and I'm in it, and I kind of got off to the side, and I was down into the ditch and fell over, and I wasn't hurt because I landed on somewhat soft stuff, but my brake lever was bent, and I'm not sure if it was rubbing or not, but anyway, I got out and got myself got going, and that was kind of right before the descent, and I'm not the kind of weight where I gained distance on a field, especially. They roll quicker.
Yes.
So I had to try catch on the climb, and I ended up at the top. I don't know, 50 yards off, 100, whatever it was. It was too far.
Yeah.
And so, it turned out what happened was the Irish Federation said there's two Irish federations.
There's like a Northern Irish and then an Ireland.
They both nominated riders to go to the Olympics, and whatever one got picked, the other one sent these commandos to sneak onto the course and drag the official riders out of the course, and that's what caused the big crash. Of course, nobody knew, I didn't know that at the time, but it got media attention after. I think my father-in-law was ready to go out and kill all the Irish people he knew, but and I wasn't feeling too chipper towards them at that point either. But I mean, the big picture, life goes on. I mean, I got to take out of it. I made the team, and I'm proud of that. And it didn't go the way I wanted it to,
Right.
And to reality, it wasn't a good course for me. I would have been. The other Canadians finished kind of in the group, and like you can finish in the group, and I think the best Canadian was 70 something, but the difference between where you are and where I am is he's 52nd, I'm 70th. You know?
I mean, it's so close coming in. Yeah.
There was 4 guys away. One of them was Henny Kuiper, who went on to be, and I think Francesco Moser.
I didn't see his name in the results, but maybe he was.
But Henny Kuiper won.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Who went on to...
And another famous rider at the time, and maybe Moser was a little younger, but anyway,
Henny Kuiper went on to second in the Tour de France. Won several of the monuments. A world champion a few years later. So really, like a team leader, like a number one rider on a team.
So it was a quality race for sure.
Right.
But I just didn't get the chance to really revel in it.
And I guess like you've been involved in bike racing a long time, and bike racing can be so amazing when everything goes right. Right. Like say your Olympic trials, like you bridge across, you get in the break, you attack, you drop. But something you can't even control, a crash or whatever. Or you're in a break and no one wants to work, and whatever it might be. And it's just that's part of bike racing. Sometimes,
unfortunately,
unfortunately, but sometimes it's great because it works out in your favor. But so looking back, like you kind of started to talk a little bit about, but looking back, what do you take away, like from that whole, like that, I don't know, 2 years or looking back 6-7 years, that here was this athlete in Winnipeg, and you're going to that level. What are some of the things you took away from all of that?
You know what? in some ways, we talked about this earlier, and I said, at this point, the only Manitoban that's ever made an Olympic team on the road.
That's right. Yeah.
And that may hold.
For the men's side. For the men's side.
Oh, granted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not for women.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Manitoba's produced some
Standing
incredible
riders
women.
on the women's side. Yeah, you can have a long list there. But on the men's side,
amazing.
yes.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I'm certainly proud of that. Just the journey was very special.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. But
all that you put in that, the work that you did, you figured out how you needed to train.
Yeah.
You did it from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And you had to go through a lot of gut punches to make that team. And
you know what? But if you're competing, you're going to go through some gut punches along the way.
And you got to get up from them.
In various events I've done, I've had things work well. I've had things work not so well. So
Great.
Yeah.
Still
That's
love
great.
doing it. So
Yeah. Oh, that's. Yeah, and you still, you still love doing it, and it's 53 years later, and you rode here to the studio today, and so
Yeah.
Now,
Growth
John, did you
growth mindset, right? Those all those little bumps in the road just make you stronger.
they do.
If you were going to finish this sentence for me, how would you finish it? Winnipeg winters made me.
You know, I maybe stubborn.
I've never heard that word used to describe you, Lindsay.
Oh, Lynn has. You know, I've done some long events as I get older that I've won because I was stubborn.
Yeah.
I used to say too dumb to quit, you know.
But stubborn is a little more positive word in some ways. Yeah. Really driven.
Yeah. Just that's. Yeah. It's. Actually, I think that 72 training in the winter here. I mean, 3 Manitobans went over to Spain to train, and none of them made it. So
at the same back in 72.
Same year.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Now Marty was one of them. Now he wasn't going to make it. He was just going because he could afford to.
Right. That's right.
A friend of ours.
Marty.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you get sort of inured to hardship for sure. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's. I mean, I remember when Clara Hughes received her induction into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, which you're also in the Sports Hall of Fame. She said, like wherever she was racing, she always had that perspective of riding and training at minus 3 degrees in the wind on a flat road, right? You're not getting away from the wind.
Yeah.
You're riding into that wind until you turn around. Yeah. And just had that perspective that it's,
And it's interesting. I sold Clara her first bike because her coach, Pete Williamson, brought her by to.
Is that the same Pete Williamson that sold you your first bike?
Yeah.
And then he had come back to Manitoba as a coach at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he told her to go to see you to buy
Well,
a bike.
he brought her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a full circle moment. Like, Pete kind of got you into the sport.
And by the way, Pete went to the Olympics as a speed skater.
Yes, that's right.
And he went to the Pan Am Games as a cyclist. So he was a great athlete.
That's right. And he passed away.
He had a brain stem aneurysm and passed away.
That's right. Yeah, but he lost a great part of Manitoba sport.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a story to kind of how that all come together. Because Clara, for those that don't know, I mean, she like 6 years later after buying her first bike, won 2 medals at the '96 Atlanta Olympics in the time trial and the road race. So
no, she was. Really, I really like Clara. You know, she's a nice, super nice girl.
Yeah, you told me, I mean, just as an aside, you told me you love watching her 5,000 meter race in the speed
I
skate.
could watch that over and over.
You just watch it over and over again. It's so dramatic. It's so cool.
This was from Salt Lake City, and she came from like 2 seconds behind with a lap and a half to go, and just simply wouldn't be beaten.
Yeah, really amazing. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are moments you don't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
and maybe attributed a little bit to our Winnipeg winters and the resilience that comes with riding your bike outside.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Well, I think that was so incredible, Lindsay. Like, I've always wanted to hear all those stories, and there was so many. There were so many details there that probably, like, there's so many people that really enjoy hearing
Sure.
hearing
Well, I
that,
hope
the
so,
ups and
yeah.
downs, and really someone coming from.
Well, I
the
just
prairies
wanted to
do
come
that.
here and not make a fool of myself.
Yeah. Well, I think the job done. Job
Okay.
done.
You know, at a certain point in life, we settle for a fairly low bar.
That's right. Oh, okay. John, any last words or anything?
Just really grateful, Lindsay. So glad I got to talk to you in the
Sure,
Power
yeah,
Pierogi
yeah.
jersey about 15 years ago, and
Yeah.
and finally got to hear the story. And we're only in 1972, so we must have you back for chapter 2 and 3 at some point.
Yeah, we'd really love to have you back, Lindsay,
Yeah.
at some point. There's just
Sure,
so many
yeah.
more stories to tell. So, okay, thanks.
Well, sometime when I'm over raking your lawn,
yeah, right. Yeah,
we'll plan it.
we won't get into that story, but yeah, thanks again, Lindsay, and thanks for everyone listening to the Long Haul Pedalcast with Steve Scholes and John McGavick, and we'll talk soon. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I've known Lindsay for a long time, and to hear that total dramatic story of him training for the Olympics, like, you can't find a World Tour athlete today that would train as much as he trains. And just the determination, missed the 71 Pan Am Games, missed qualifying for the team time trial with, a lot of politics. And, he's got that one race to try and qualify for the Olympics. What a cool story from Lindsay.
This could be an ESPN 30 for 30. There's one spot left on the Canadian team. There's political drama. It's the 72 Munich Olympics, which by itself has its own stories. As someone from Winnipeg that didn't know this from the beginning, I was enthralled the whole way through. It was fascinating.
And one thing that I really take away from this is Lindsay's determination, like unyielding determination. And this is like 53 years ago, 60 years ago, and he's just held that determination through everything he's done in his life. And we're going to have to get him on the Pedalcast more often, because that's just one of like 100 things that he's done.
I'll be honest with you. I went out for a ride 2 days later when it was -9 or -10 just to see what it would be like. And I was on a gravel bike on gravel roads where it was nice and quiet, and it killed me. He was out there in January for hundreds of K for hours. The fact that he said, I've never been on rollers in my entire life, just absolutely blew me away.
Yeah. Day after day, he just had that determination, and he did it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I totally agree. We got to bring him back. But before we bring him back, episode 3 is coming up. We're about to record that, and hopefully it'll be out to our audience before the holiday break. Looking forward to the next one.
Hey, Pedalcast fans, you can now reach out to John and Steve through email. Our email is longhall@umfm.com. longhall@umfm.com. So you can send us all your questions, all your compliments, and we might get to them on the Pedalcast. So thanks for listening, and reach out to let us know what you're thinking. Thanks for listening to the Long Haul Pedalcast. Be sure to subscribe and keep listening to all of these incredible stories that will help inspire you to create your own long haul journey.